Yu-Gi-Oh! Is one of the best-selling trading card games in the world. I am going to explain some of the new rules and card types that have surfaced within the newer generations, Pendulum and Lynx. Now, you may be asking yourself, what are Pendulum cards? What do they do? And how do I put Pendulum monsters into these new Pendulum zones? You may also find yourself asking, what are the rules to these link monsters? What does linking and co-linking do? What do the arrows on these link monsters do? Finally, you may find yourself asking, what do these new zones on the field do? And what do they have to do with these new monsters? How should I modify my deck to incorporate these newer cards into my older generation deck? And since you've likely seen some older generation cards in newer decks, you may ask how widely used they are in these new generations. While that may seem like a lot, it shouldn't be very hard to understand. Pendulum cards are essentially monster cards that also function like spells that let you special summon from the hand. They allow you to special summon monsters from your hand with a star level that is in between in the pendulum scales of the two pendulum monsters. For example, Guiding Ariadne has a pendulum scale of 3, and Dragon Pit Magician has a pendulum scale of 8. With both of these on the field, you would be capable of special summoning any monster with a star level of 4, 5, 6, or 7 directly from your hand. This is honestly the easiest of things to understand, as all you need to do is have the far right and far left spell and trap zone empty, as they are also the pendulum zones. Link monsters can be summoned by sacrificing other monsters, but depending on what the recipe says, as well as the link rating. The link rating determines how many monsters you need to sacrifice, and the recipe determines what type of monsters you need to sacrifice. You can even sacrifice another link monster you control to summon a different one and subtract the sacrificed one's link rating from the new one, and you only have to pay the remaining cost. Link monsters cannot be used to defend. Well, they can, but they cannot be put into defense position, as they do not have any listed defense points. Linking has a variety of effects that can vary from raising the attack points of the link monster for every one that it points to. Co-linking has a variety of effects as well, which often affects both monsters. Link arrows determine where you can link monsters. If it points at a normal monster, they are linked. And if it points to a link monster whose link arrows point right back at it, they are co-linked. Link arrows also mean that you can special summon monsters from the extra deck into monster zones they point to. Not much has honestly changed since the introduction of XYZ summoning. The only major addition is the extra monster zone, which is now the only place where you can put monsters from your extra deck. On the here, they are. All the zones are labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. 1 is the main monster zone, 2 is the spell and trap as well as pendulum zones, 3 is the field spell, 4 is the graveyard, 5 is the extra deck zone, 6 is the main deck, and 7 is the extra monster zone. As I stated, you can only summon XYZ monsters as well as fusion monsters to the extra monster zone, unless a link monster points to a normal monster zone. The main thing that you could do to incorporate these new monsters is to make room in your extra deck for them, as it seems Pendulum and Link monsters reside in the extra deck. As for the older generation monsters, they are even more highly used than they were before, as they were kind of a dead monster format after, I believe, after the 5D generation, as they had no effects whatsoever. While that may have seemed like a lot, and believe me, it is, but as long as you read the rules, you should be fine. Just remember, Pendulum means you can summon monsters. There's between the high and low pendulum scale from your hand, and Link monsters get more power and let you special summon to the monster zone. And these new rules aren't that much of a change.